I have a special guest on the line. Had to pause there a minute. Sounded like I was in a tin can. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Great. Folks, I have Brian Wedgworth, an exhibition artist for Rockport Center for the Arts, on the line. And Brian, you're speaking from your Titan
Home.
studio in Harlingen, right?
Yes,
And you've had that studio for 20 years, so you've been deep in art for quite a while.
yes, ma'am.
Well, I love the name of your exhibition, Tejidos en Fierro, that translates as woven in iron. And Brian, that's like a paradox. You know, you think of weaving as using something malleable like yarn, and iron you think of as being so hard, but you're weaving in iron.
Well, the reason I'd say that is because when you're putting the two pieces together, you're actually stitching two pieces of steel together using the rod or the MIG welder with the wire coming out of the machine. So you're kind of doing a similar motion as sewing or connecting these two pieces together.
What came first, Brian, the art or the welding?
The welding. My father had a welding truck when I was growing up, and I was probably about 11, 12 years old when he showed me the basics of it. And then I got into high school and signed up for the ag mechanics classes and stuff. And then always doing art through high school and then discovering it at the university later and then working with Richard Heisman. Made a career out of it. I went into art class knowing how to weld, and my professor took a liking to that and then asked me to work on a project with him. You know, that project changed my life. It was working on a 50-foot statue of the Virgin Guadalupe, and that was back in the early 90s and stuff. And then through that project propelled my life into, continue to make art. And around 2000, I decided to go full time. In about 2004, I got my studio there in Harlingen, and both me and my wife are artists. She makes jewelry, and I make a steel sculpture.
That's just fascinating, Brian, how callings develop in people's life. Have you done other forms of art, or did this become immediately your favorite form?
I like working with the steel. You're playing with heat and fire and the permanence of it, and the things that you could do with steel you can't do with other materials. You can take these things and then put them way out on an end. And then the steel, it's got a malleable clay when it's red hot, and then feeling to it. But then when it's hard, it's steel and it's rigid, and it's got a little bit of flex and bend in it. But it's just the permanence of the material.
I really enjoyed looking at your work online, and to me, the pieces, many of them evoke movement. Like it seems like the propeller's going to start spinning anytime, or the little silver ball, the little sphere is going to lose its balance or start rolling. Did you intentionally create them so that viewers imagined movement?
I work component oriented, so I build a lot of components and things, and I play with them, and I like to play with the balance and the form, and just to have fun with putting these pieces together. And I guess there's a sense of movement in some, and some are very rigid, but there's always a sort of play or balance in the work. And I've had a lot of fun making these pieces.
Well, Brian, you have said that you describe your sculptures as autobiographical narratives. Expand on that.
A lot of times like for the Reflection series, I was going through a difficult time in my life, and I had a bout with colon cancer, and I felt my life was out of control, and I tried to bring it back and focus on something. So I was able to work between the treatments and things. I was able to work small. Usually I work very large pieces. I was able to work small, and these were a way to focus in and kind of control and just reflect on life and things, and just playing with the balance and the form and the negative shapes and then the things, and kind of almost looking like under a microscope, but then just kind of playing with the forms. And once I get them down to where I like them, I weld them down to make them permanent. And so I try to have a little bit of fun and play with when I'm building these things. Worked on a lot of different pieces at the same time. So it's almost like an orchestration or composing music. Very similar because, you're kind of bringing all these elements into a composition, and then it kind of flows together, and then they all kind of talk to each other as they go through, as you walk through the exhibition.
We've learned over the centuries that art is definitely good medicine, and how beautiful that you were able to translate something you were going through into your art, and how exciting that the people of Rockport and the surrounding communities, anyone who visits Rockport Center for the Arts between now and July 16th, can see your work. Tell our listeners how they can go online to see your art.
You can find my work at Brian Wedgworth Art on Instagram. I've got a lot of different works through my life, the works I've created. It's on Instagram. There's also some videos on YouTube. If you search Brian Wedgworth, there'll be some videos that pop up of different things that I've done.
Yeah, and I think I just typed your name in, Brian Wedgworth. That's WEDGWORTH. One of the Brian Wedgworths that came up was Brian Wedgworth Artist, and I clicked on that and was able to see your work. I really enjoyed that. Well, another thing that people in Rockport can take advantage of is you're having an artist talk on Friday, this Friday.
This Friday, 12:30. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'll be there talking about walking through the exhibition and talking about the works there at the art center. It's a beautiful center. It's an amazing space. People to see it and experience it. There's a lot of different art for people to see. It's a jewel lit right on the water.
I agree. And there's also a reception Friday night from 5 to 7. So hope you have a fabulous day Friday. It's been a delight to speak with you. Thank you for sharing your gifts and talents with the world, and have a great talk on Friday at 12:30 and a beautiful reception Friday night. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Brian Wedgworth. He's an exhibition artist for the Rockport Center for the Arts.